everyone. Thank you for joining this free webinar with Coach Stacey Parker. I'm absolutely thrilled that Stacey has agreed to join us, because if you don't know, it is 6 a.m. where Stacey is, and I'm truly grateful that Stacey is here with us. And today's topic is going to be a really interesting one, because I think at some point of our lives, we will have had some instances where, you know, some of the things that Stacey's going to be talking about is going to be relevant to us. It's revolving around relationships, but specifically sex addiction. Now, before we go into the kind of the sex addiction part, I would like to welcome Stacey. Stacey, are you okay? Is everything okay? You're up and running. If you got your coffee?
I'm so good. Yeah, I've got my water, because I will have my coffee on my next round when I go back to bed and then wake up. So this is just awesome. Like a flash, but I'm here.
Great,
and I'm glad to be here. It's so good to see you, Camille. Like, it's been so fun to work with you. God, now it's been a lot of months. I mean, we've known each other probably since about April, May or so.
I think it was April. It was April. Yeah. It was great, because I think just a backstory for everyone's purposes. Obviously, we met back in April as part of the Jay Shetty Certification School program, and you know it has been a really interesting journey, because I'm meeting a lot of people and getting a lot of kind of learning from people, like other people's experiences, which I think is really useful.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was like for you.
No, it was the same, because I thought, you know, Jay is in LA, so I thought it was just going to be LA based for some reason. And then when all my colleagues, there was like, we would set up a coaching session with someone in Hong Kong, and then you in Dubai, and then someone in Morocco. And it was, you just, especially in COVID, it was really nice, because you felt connected to the world a little bit more, you know, instead of being in your one bedroom place, it was like you had a window to the whole world, which was fun.
Absolutely. Now, Stacey, I don't want to take up any more time. Without further ado, Jay's famous words, without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Stacey.
Oh, thank you. Well, no, I'm very happy to be here. And yeah, I guess today we're going to be talking about sex addiction. It's very exciting. It's interesting. It's something that I didn't even know about. I didn't even believe that it was a thing before, until I encountered it with my ex-husband. And some people are like, oh, it is that's just means people cheat and everything like that. But there is a difference. You know, when, like any addiction, it's when you're risking everything. You know, you're risking your home life, your job, and all that kind of stuff. And so there's many different forms of sex addiction. And I learned this from going to meetings. And I'd be interested if anyone else has been to it's sex and love addiction meeting. It's called SLAW, just like AA for Alcoholics Anonymous. It's SLAW. And when I went there, did you have a question? Stop me if you have something to say.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I'm just to kind of tell people that we have a chat box, so that's really useful, because if you have any questions, specific questions for Stacey or any one of us, just write it down in the chat box, and we'll try to kind of address the question as we go along.
Yeah, and I see Frida, so I know she might have some comments, because I think she'd be open to share that she's been not in sex addiction, but also dealing with narcissism. So all that good stuff. And I see Ray as well. Good morning, Ray. But yeah, so the way this started is morning, Frida. I know everyone's muted, but so I can you want me to just start with how I ran into this? Oh, you're muted, Camille.
Sorry, yes, I'm mute now. Okay, apologies. Now let's start from. I know it is a challenging topic for any one of us to kind of go through, to go through the past, and to share our personal experiences. And I really thank you for this, Stacey, for doing this and sharing from your own personal experience of what's happened in the past. Before we get to the sex addiction, I mean, if you don't mind sharing with us the kind of the context of the relationship that you were in before, and what it was like. What was the kind of experience before you met your husband, your expectations, maybe the expectations of each other, and what actually happened as the relationship went along.
Yeah, yeah. So I was engaged to like a Hollywood agent before he was extremely narcissistic, and I was like, I'm done with narcissists. I'm never dealing with them again. And I met this nice teacher who ran a volleyball club. He was this 6'9" black guy, and I'd never dated a black guy, and it was all very interesting. It was kind of like experimental. And then he was really wonderful. He was extremely charismatic. But, as an English teacher, he could spew like wonderful poetry and everything. So it was an interesting mix that I just got swept up in. And he was really, really good at the love bombing. If anyone's familiar with love bombing, I'd love to hear if anyone else has been love bombed. But what that means is when, as a narcissist, when they meet someone, they need not just like a getting to know you type of thing, but they need that extreme love back. So they bomb you like, so much, oh my God, I'm so into you, and all this kind of stuff, because they need that in return. And that's what I got, and so I truly felt like this was love and everything, and I got swept up in it. And we got married maybe like a year and a half later after we met. But then, and it was a fairy tale romance. A lot of people, it was pretty funny. All of our friends were very envious of our relationship. But then, it's like a few years into it where it's just women's intuition, where you're feeling something's going on. He was always going to the bathroom with his phone, and just little things that you pick up on. I saw some messages on Facebook. He was writing to all my friends, DMing them, just feeling things out to see like who would respond with something. So that's awkward too, when your friends are getting written to. But I did feel something. So I actually had an old phone that I turned on and I put in his car. And this is another thing that happens when you have someone cheating. You become like the best private investigator ever. I'm laughing I see Frida because she's laughing. But I put the phone in the car, and I see him going to the park every day for an hour and a half, which is strange. But I didn't say anything, because I tried this before where I would ask questions and he would just lie. So I knew I couldn't do that, because then I would just get lied to, and then he would be more on alert. So I had to this is how bad this is what you're doing in a marriage, which is the insanity of it. But so I put a phone in the car, and he was going to the park every day for an hour and a half. And then at the end of the week, I drive up, and he ran off, because when you're cheating, you're so hyper vigilant, you're hyper aware of like anything that could come and, catch you. So he runs off, and then I see this woman get out of the car. And
sorry, Stacey, you put the phone, you put your own phone in the car, in the husband's car? Or it was
an old phone that I had, so I turned the back on. Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
And that, did find my iPhone.
Right,
so
okay.
Basically,
just to see where the movement, where he was going.
Yeah.
Right,
So
okay,
what was it? Yeah. So he was hanging out at a park with this woman like for an hour and a half every day. And this woman was a student's mom. And she was married as well. So, I was shocked about that. And then when that happened, I said, okay, it's over, and, that's it. And he said, well, can we go to therapy? And I thought, why not? I'm married. I'd never been married before. And I actually wanted to go through the process and understand it. It was the weirdest thing, because your trust is kind of busted. But at the same time, you want to work on it. And this is someone who was very loving. On the other hand, it wasn't like he was mean or anything else. And we were actually having sex. So usually I thought people cheat when like they're not getting it at home or anything like that, but that wasn't the case. So yeah, we go to therapy, but he was never honest with himself, and he would just lie, make up stories, and was never honest with that they were actually together. So this went on for a year. And then I hired a private detective, because I couldn't, it was too much. I knew something was going on. He was still lying. I'm meditating as well. And this is another thing. If you guys meditate, I'd love to hear if people meditate, because that's something that has changed my life. Especially because I wasn't telling any of my friends about this. So I needed kind of like somewhere to channel all this anxiety. So I started meditating, and, it didn't really do much. That everyone says, oh, I meditate. I'm not really good at it. I just sit there and, my mind goes elsewhere, and that's kind of what we're meant to do. But if you do it long enough, it does have crazy effects on you in a good way. Because after a few months, I was meditating, and I stopped, and I was in tears, and I realized I had compassion for this woman, because I thought, she must have been so lonely to have wanted to do this. But that really changed my brain. And since meditation, it's just slowed down. I don't wake up in the middle of the night having like negative self-talk and everything like that, where I used to, or I would wake up in the middle of the night and panic and think about all these things I have to worry about. And the meditation is actually just slow down. You wake up and you're appreciative of everything. You're walking around in nature and everything's beautiful. So I highly recommend it for people who aren't now and are looking into it.
Stacey, if you don't mind, that's really interesting, because what you've said there, at one point you actually felt compassion for that lady.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting, because usually, the things that I hear is like, it's very difficult to actually achieve that for somebody else who you think in your relationship has had, a negative effect on your relationship, but you actually had compassion for this other person.
Yes, which was a shock, because I really didn't want to. I wasn't ready to have compassion for her. I really wanted to. I didn't like her. I hated her for doing this, And we women always go for the woman who's doing that, but you forget about the actual husband that you're married to, who's the main culprit. But yeah, that's why I felt a difference, because I wasn't ready to have compassion for her, but it was kind of just a shock, which was really cool, and that's what kept me doing it. But yeah, so then I did hire a private detective, and they were following both of them. And it turns out they were meeting on campus at the school, and they were like meeting in a classroom, that's so risky, on top of like having a kid walk in, just the community and that. And if anyone, it's beyond, but it didn't mean it. When you're an addict, like you're just looking to survive, and you have just a huge hole in your heart, and you will do anything to fill that with any kind of validation. And I think also what drove him was the secrecy and the power of that, in a way. So yeah, that was it, because I had a phone that we were sharing our location at this point. So he would put his phone in his car or in that to show that he was still at school. So once I found out that they were still together after a whole year of us working on stuff and going through therapy, and him just lying about it, then I finally filed for divorce. And the PI, this was Mel Gibson's security guard, bodyguard, sorry. Yeah. So it was a very interesting experience to be working with him. First they saw that they were meeting up, but they couldn't see them. They couldn't get onto the school grounds because of the gate. So finally I went with them, and then I saw what he had been doing every day, was taking his phone, putting it in the car, and then they would drive off to go somewhere just for like half an hour or something like that. So that was thrilling. And then I filed for divorce, and I said, this is over, and that he needed to leave. And then he did another manipulation, which was he said he would go through sex addiction recovery program, which was, that's all I really wanted for him. I look back, it was just a manipulation to save it, but because I think he went through it and wouldn't tell the full truth and everything. But this is where people are like, you still stayed. But, at this point, I'm a sucker for someone who really wants to work on themselves. And I had seen some other people go through this and get on the other side. And that, if you're in a marriage and you put a lot of work in, I have a couple they're still doing work for 10 years, and they're one of the most beautiful couples ever. That was inspirational. And I was ready to do that. I was ready to go through that whole process of, him going through the recovery program and us going to therapy and everything. So we did that. And then later on, he had a family in Beverly Hills that invested in a volleyball club for him. He was going to be the co-founder. And later on, he was sleeping with one of the moms on that same team as the volleyball. So, I mean, in LA, there's loads and loads of beautiful women. And it was just interesting that he chose these two like average moms, just like right under everyone's nose. So you have to wonder what that was about as well. That, he could basically, if he wanted to sleep with anyone, but he chose someone who's like really good friends with the investor and like the power of knowing this secret about that. So, I saw him and this was my life. I felt something. And so I'm going to like a church parking lot and I'm hiding in the bushes and I see him walk out of a hotel in the middle of the afternoon. And I see him walk out and I actually called the hotel and I asked for the woman's name who I thought it was. And, when you call and they say no, that they're not there, they would say, no, there's no one here, but they would say, let me connect you. So as soon as I got that, I'm like, that's it. That's all I need to know. And then I didn't say anything that night. He came home in the morning. He got in the shower and I took his keys. He got out and I said, I hope you had a lovely time at this hotel, but I need for you to pack your bags. And that was it. And unfortunately, this did come out just recently. I had fantasies like 3 years about going to the school to say something, but I didn't want to be that woman to say anything. So eventually it did come out. I mean, we've been apart for more than a year, but just a few weeks ago, the headmaster reached out to me and said they have a private detective who was looking into his case. And then I had a Zoom call with them for about 3 hours. And then the next day they let me know that he was on leave. So, I never wanted him to lose his job, but unfortunately he did. And I'm just hoping that this is going to be the rock bottom that's going to get him to actually get some help, so we'll see. But that's all I can hope for.
Stacey, this is awesome. I mean, again, thank you so much for sharing the really kind of, I guess, personal, kind of, really intimate kind of information that you're sharing with us. And I really appreciate you doing that. I just want to kind of maybe ask, possibly, what were your feelings, the kind of the spectrum of feelings that was emotions that you were going through, I guess, from the beginning to where you are, I guess, where you are now, in terms of seeing this unfolding before your eyes and how does it affect you? So if you don't mind sharing, what were the kind of the emotions that we're going through?
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw Mary's question as well, so I'll get to that. But it's the weirdest thing because you don't trust this person. You've already busted them, like, clearly. But at the same time, you're in a marriage, and so you want to work on it. So it's a roller coaster because some days he was always very loving, so you can't hate them, but at the same time you do because of what they've done. And your mind is going. I also confronted this woman. They went to another park a week later, and I walked up and she didn't even get out of the car. Like, if that were me, I would have jumped out, been like, you go deal with it. And so I got in the back and I said to her, I go, how disgusting would it be for your sons to know that you're sleeping with their English teacher, So it's, yeah. And then like I'm sure everyone does when you have like a confrontation like that, you always play it back in your head over and over again of what you could say. But it was that's why I meditated, because my brain is going like that, like you want to trust, but you don't at all. And so it's very strange. And also there's also kind of like, I guess my addiction was me constantly checking my phone. I was constantly on my phone looking at the share our location. I couldn't even work, because I'm like, well, what is he doing now? And I see Frida like recognizing it. Just that, you can't concentrate because you're so focused on like catching them again to get the truth. And I had a friend that was like, well, you already have. And I just needed that final smoking gun. So yeah, it was. And for Mary, at what point did you realize it was addiction? Because it was, and I was seeing a therapist, and I said, if he's still seeing this woman, and I have to say, I don't want to be, she was an older woman, and if she was like, this young, hot goddess, like I could understand, but there was no reason why he had to cheat. It was something that I've been told that they are just surviving, every day, that it's just, they're trying to get through. And I think he was also addicted to the lying of what he could get away with, and then people confront him, and then to see, make them feel better by lying. And then Frida's nodding again, but it's very true. I hope that answers your question. When do you think he realized it? Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah.
So I guess the next question is, you mentioned about therapy, that you guys went to therapy and you gave it a go. I guess from the therapy, what have you found that what would kind of, I guess, the triggers or the things that have led to, your ex-husband's habit? So are there kind of, coming out from the therapy, were there any kind of insights into why he behaved the way that he did?
Yeah. So this never came out in therapy. And this was, I don't know if you've heard, did you watch the Michael Jackson, where the two boys who were molested and everything? He had been going to therapy for years before he even told his actual story. It never came out. We were there for in total of a year. In the middle of therapy, he was saying, I'm good, I'm going to self-reflect. And I was like, well, I'm not good. I need to keep going. I need to talk to someone. And that was another sign of for him to self-reflect. And meanwhile, he's still sleeping with his woman. So what was your question again? I'm sorry.
So basically, what have you found were the kind of the things that potentially led to your husband doing the things that he did?
Yeah.
What were the kind of, maybe the things that encouraged him to do what he did?
Yeah. There, and this is what a lot of people who are in sex addiction is, that when they were younger, they've dealt with some kind of molestation. I had a feeling about that, because that's usually what happens in sex. It's just, if you repress it down, it seeps out in weird ways, which are things like sleeping with a woman in a park and that kind of stuff. And I thought I would leave him little comments to see if he would open up on that. But this is after I kicked him out. Then he said that he was working with a therapist. This therapist has saved my life. I realized there was something that happened to me when I was 5 and all that kind of stuff. And that he didn't give me details, but that was the extent of it. And that's usually the case, is that, if you've been molested, you have that, the molester is telling you, this is our secret and all that kind of stuff. So I think he was always just, everything had been told to push it down, keep secrets and everything like that. And that is, at the same time, it's very powerful. So it's that's where I have compassion for him, because he wasn't even able to speak your truth, and that's the hardest thing when you're living like that. You're never. I don't know if you guys heard Oprah, but she said you will never get to where you want to be if you aren't living in your truth. Ellen spoke about it. Ellen DeGeneres, on how she had been constantly living her lie. This was before she came out. And it was really hard when she came out, but that's when she blew up as well. So I encourage everyone, if you are struggling with that, to, as painful as it may be, live in your truth, because it's so freeing, And I was living a lie too with all my friends, having our friends over for dinners and acting like the happy wife and everything like that. And that was painful, because I really wanted to scream at the top of my lungs, he's cheating on me, so. Yeah, that was it.
Again, if anyone has any more specific questions, please do use the chat box to ask, and hopefully Stacey will be willing enough to answer them. Stacey, just off the back of what you just said just there about when people came over, friends, family, um, you, I'm kind of paraphrasing what you just said. You felt that you had to put up a show, that everything was hunky dory, but deep down inside, it was, I guess, killing you that this thing was happening.
Yeah.
You know, I guess if you don't mind just talking a bit more about that. Well, I mean, what were the feelings, and eventually, how did you get over, you know, when the thing came out, how did you get over to kind of, you know, engaging with your friends and family and telling them, well, actually, this is what happened?
Yeah, no, it felt good. And I remember, I think I was drinking a little bit more than usual, you know, because there was anger. And then that would seep out through me, where I was trying to act like everything was okay and that we're trusting and we're going to therapy and everything. But then when I would have some drinks, I would like have comments about like, oh, you know, I didn't, you know, meet up with someone in a park or different things like that. So it was, I think I was, I was just probably self-medicating myself to deal with that because I couldn't talk with anyone. And then I also learned a really cool lesson about friends. I did tell two friends of mine. One, you know, when I was about to break up with him, I think she was single and I think she was excited for me to join the single life. And when I let her know, no, he's going to go through sex addiction recovery, he's going to stay, she got really angry at me. And this is the time when I really, really needed a friend, and I didn't need a friend getting angry at me. And then I had another friend who, you know, I was embarrassed to tell her, you know, this is after I filed for divorce, that I was going to let him stay. And she said, okay, you know, whatever you need to do, you know, and that's exactly what I needed. So that's, you know, if we all have friends going through something really hard and you don't agree with what they're doing, still try and be there for them. That was a big lesson I learned, because I have friends now who, you know, I have a guy friend who's with this girl that she's really not nice to him and she's really mean, but he needs my friendship to listen to him way more than me being angry with him. And that was a cool lesson that I learned.
Thank you, Stacey. We've got a few more questions in the chat box. I don't know if you can see them. Maybe if you don't mind addressing them.
Yeah, from Frida.
Yeah, from Frida. What have you found about yourself? Why you were able to hold the space for development for so long?
To hold space, yeah. Like, I mean, I was going through therapy, and the therapist said, "Wow, you don't have a victim bone in your body." And I noticed that was like a big compliment, because I wasn't saying like, oh, he cheated on me and getting upset. It was more like understanding him. And it really wasn't about me. It was about him fulfilling this constant need for validation and the supply. And that was really freeing. I mean, you have to take some responsibility in a relationship if you're going to move on and be in a better one next time. And what I take responsibility for is staying that long. But I don't regret that, because it was a huge process, and that gives me greater insight into people's pain, actually, as a coach, because now I can understand it. I think I'm a better coach, and I used to be a little judgmental, and everything was kind of black and white. And, you know, I would think, you know, when you get married, if someone cheats, you're done. And look at me, I was with someone who's cheating on me for years, you know? So that's kind of the beauty of it in a way, if that makes sense. I mean, it was really, really hard, but you see that the world is just gray now instead of black and white. And that's a huge blessing, actually.
I think in a sense, Stacey, what you're saying is that because you had either consciously or subconsciously, a big part of you has empathy, which you're trying to kind of understand why has this come about, as opposed to, like you're saying, playing a victim. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, whatever happened. Okay, that aside, but wanting to understand, I guess that's where you were coming from. That's where you allowed you to move on from, like your therapist said, not being a victim, but actually moving on to the next stage of, you know, how do we work this out? What actually happened? Why did it happen? You know, so I guess, I don't know, maybe is that right? I'm not sure.
Absolutely. No. And I don't know if you guys, if do you know Steve Chandler, he's the Prosperous Coach. I think he wrote the Prosperous Coach. I told you about it, but he does an audio called Owner versus Victim. So you can either be a victim, and it's very convenient to be a victim, and that's very narcissistic as well, Frida, that you can just blame everything on anyone. And that way you don't ever have to work on yourself or look into yourself just by blaming. But to own something, that means you're going to have to work on your stuff. So being an owner is very difficult, but owning it, and I think we all know Kimberly, because
I was about to say, Kimberly talks about owning your stuff, owning your shit last week or 2 weeks ago. So it all ties in.
Yes, exactly. It does. And that, when you do own it, you can take responsibility for it, and you can go, it's going to be painful, but on the other side, it's so much better and it's beautiful. It really is. If you have the courage to go through it, to work on it.
Thanks,
Kimberly.
Yeah, next one from Kimberly. Did you ever take his behavior personally, or did you immediately realize that it wasn't about you?
Definitely not. No, I totally took it personal. I became obsessed with her, like I'm looking at her Facebook and what does she have that I don't, and all that kind of stuff. No, this was definitely a process, after, because I didn't understand it. I think it would have, if it was this young, hot thing, I would have been like, okay, yeah, I get it, but she was this mom, she wasn't fabulous, and that's where I slowly realized, like, okay, this has to be something way deeper than just them, but no, that was definitely not yes, I took it personally, and yeah, it's painful when you love someone and you see they're like sharing all this intimate stuff with someone else. That's really, really hard, because I would see what they were writing on Facebook and everything like that, and you're like, why is he talking to her about this? And yeah, that's really hard. I can smile about it now because I'm away from it, but at the time it was very difficult, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks, Stacey. I have a question about social media, but I'm going to park that for now. I'm going to go to Mary's question. What would you say are the most important and useful takeaways that you had from the experience that benefit your life right now?
Yeah. It was realizing that it wasn't about me, that it was him going through it, and he needed to go through it. The past year I've been obsessed about him, like, why is he still at the school? Why haven't they found out and everything? And I really wanted to call the school, but everyone's like, it will come out eventually. And now at the point where I don't even care anymore, that's when it happened. Where I did find out that he's put on leave and everything. But it's a lot of self-love. As soon as I kicked him out, I took 6 months off where I wasn't really impressed by men, and I didn't want, dating was like so far from that, because I didn't want to be involved with a man. And so just taking time for myself, meditating, I journaled a lot, all that kind of stuff that we talk about. And then, I'm such a better dater now. I haven't been single since 2010, and I'm experiencing these apps and everything, which are fun. So it's a fun experience, and I know exactly what I want. Rarely does it go past 2 dates, because it's like, just filters, like I know what I want. And if I see something, if I see like a narcissistic red flag, or if I see anything else, I'm done. There's no need. And it's really fun. It's a fun experience. And you get to meet people, and you get to learn a lot about these apps and all that kind of stuff, which is a fun experience too. I don't know if they have it in Dubai. Do they have Tinder and Hinge and Bumble in Dubai?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't have those apps. I'm not able to answer them. But I guess so, maybe. Actually, we love Hinge in London. Okay, Mary says.
Yes. That's the one I do. Yes, that's the fun. I actually tried out Bumble. And this is my just personal opinion. I think the woman who created this should be shot, because I've I've seen, she agrees. It's because her whole thing is like, oh, we're empowering women and everything like that. You have control of it. So I don't know, Camille, if you know about this, but Bumble is where if you match, the woman has to write first. She has to make the first move.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's no pressure.
Exactly. So what it's done to men, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think like men like the hunt, but now these women are asking the questions. So now they're like the little chicks, like sitting back waiting for all these women to write to them. And I've noticed that they just respond. They don't engage. You know what I mean? I mean, they might just not be interested as well, but that's what I've noticed with the communication, is that they will just respond because they're getting so many questions from all these women, and they're just like, it's great for them, you know, not so much for we women though. I think that this is why Mary might like Hinge, right? It gives men a chance. Yes. Right? Yeah. And that's why I only respond to people who like or comment on my photos. I tried liking and it doesn't work. So that's what works for me, but everyone has a different way of doing it.
I guess this is really, yeah, Yasmin agrees with Bumble. Yeah.
Yes.
This is really interesting because then it kind of goes into what I was going to ask about social media, the role of social media and apps, and a lot of this online virtual things that have happened, I guess, in the last 10, 15 years, you know. I remember my first time signing up to even pre-Facebook, it was Friendster at that time. And then Friendster went off Friendster, MySpace, and then they went off, and then Facebook came along. I guess, sorry?
You were on Friendster?
I was on Friendster. I had a Friendster account way back.
Me too,
yeah.
I'm
so
still there.
I guess, the kind of the dynamic of relationships has completely changed. You know, the terrain has changed from online to things that have happened online now with social media and apps. What's your take on the role of social media with, I guess, sex addiction and relationships?
I mean, I think cheating has gone way up since Facebook and these apps. I mean, I have a friend who, her husband was married, not, they hadn't broken up yet, and he was going on Tinder just to see, because why not? Just see what's out there. So I think it's very dangerous, and that, you're hearing about people getting back in touch with their friends from high school and having these on the side emotional affairs and everything like that. But at the same time, I want to say, like, the thing that's kind of cool about these apps and social media is that now, our grandparents, the way they met, was like on a street in a cafe or something like that. It was very like geographical. That was kind of it. If you lived on the same block, Tom would meet Rosemary on the, and that would be it. But now we actually can be so selective in meeting our soulmate. If there's something not quite right, we can actually carry on and move on to the next person, knowing that. At the same time, that's a negative aspect of it as well, because, I think when we would, back in the day when I was dating before these apps, you would go out with someone and you go home and you would think about them for a little bit. You'd be like, I wonder what their family's like, or I wonder, do they travel and all that kind of stuff. And so you'd be engaged with what they're about. And now that you come home and people start swiping, you go on a date with Susie and then you come home and you swipe away for like, what's next, so it does something to your brain where it just kind of devalues humans a little bit, I feel.
I think I kind of agree with that, Stacey. Again, my take on social media is that there's, I guess, two sides of the coin. We've got that aspect, but you mentioned about the apps, which are trying to kind of, I guess, remedy what's to counterbalance the negatives. The things that, I guess, what we're doing now with coaching and stuff like that. There's always positives to the way that we use social media. I guess it's entirely up to us how we want to, either go and harm ourselves or other people, or we actually want to encourage and take people to the next level and help people. So I guess it has that kind of duality to it, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why I think, I mean, that's what kind of my coaching is based on with relationships, is that it's not so much about, it is about relationships, but it's not so much about trying to get in a relationship. It's about connecting. That's my company is called Connection to You. So it's really connecting with yourself before you can even get into another relationship, because you're not going to be worth anything unless you really develop yourself and know who you are and what you are willing to compromise and what you're not, you know? So it's a whole learning process, and it's getting to know yourself a lot more before you get into something. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
I think that's really interesting, Stacey, what you mentioned about getting to know yourself. I guess just looking back into my own life, it is one of those things where sometimes we don't want to kind of go there because we're scared, because there's a fear of what we might find out. It's only until, I guess, where we are brave or courageous enough to actually have an honest conversation with ourselves. I guess healing and healing for yourself, but also in your relationship can allow to happen. But it is challenging. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone is easy, but like you say, it is a challenging process.
Yep. And what do you think triggers someone to have the courage to look into yourself? I'm curious what you've seen.
I guess, like, for me, from my own personal experience, it's like it's kind of funny, because it is to go inside yourself. There might be some external factors which actually force you to do that work. Sometimes it's either trauma or something happens, or in my case, I've got a family now, kids. I'm looking at my kids and I'm thinking of when I was a kid, and having that kind of comparison to actually sit down and say, what, am I repeating history? Am I going to repeat what I experienced with my kids? Or hang on a minute, step back. Is this an opportunity to give them something different, a new experience, maybe a better experience? So I guess external factors maybe can trigger that kind of work, but it is challenging. It's not like you just wake up one day and then, oh yeah, I'm going to do some work on myself. I don't know, but for me, it was a process. It was a process. To be aware of looking inside and doing work for yourself.
And go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, now is obviously a kind of a challenging period for everyone on this call, and family, friends. The last 6-8 months has been tops. Everything's been turned upside down. Our lives have been completely changed. And for me personally, this has been I'm not saying in a kind of a bad way, but it has been something that has changed my life for the better, because it has allowed me that space to really look at myself and say, what am I doing? Where am I going? And somehow things aligned. I'm meeting people. I'm meeting you, Kimberly, Mary, all these people, which, last year, I wouldn't have thought that this would have happened. But somehow there is positives to take from the negatives that have happened. And that this space has allowed me to do that work for myself. And I found that really, really beneficial. And, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, that's so good. And I mean, I'm not a parent, but I want to, parenting is such a wild ride. It really kind of like turns you upside down, and it brings up all your shit that you didn't see when you were a kid. But they also say, like, your parents' shortcomings can be your biggest blessings, right? Whatever you didn't get or whatever you didn't, you can make that decision of like learning how to change that to make sure that your kids get that, whatever you didn't, because usually there's the pathology of that repeating itself. but being aware of it and knowing, okay, I'm not going to do that, and switching it up, that's can be the biggest, if you can do it, the big blessing.
I think absolutely. I think personally for me, like, previous relationships, I now looking back, I'm just going to be honest. Looking back, it was history repeating itself. So the way that I was dealing in my previous relationships, when I look back, actually, that's the way that my parents were, like,
Yeah.
right? Because now I'm looking back and thinking, well, I learned from them, whether either consciously or subconsciously, because you spend time with them. So you practice what you see.
Yeah.
And like I said, only when trauma happens, like when things, when breakups happen, you take the time to think, what the hell happened? What, hang on a minute, I thought everything was fine. But then that allows you time to think, actually, have I been doing the right thing? What have I been doing? What haven't I been doing? So I guess that's where, trauma potentially can trigger, self-awareness and, self-reflection. But it's not for everyone. Some people don't get that, they repeat the same thing over and over again. From my own observation, but I've been grateful that I've had that time to self-reflect and, and say, well, hang on a minute, stop, put the brakes on. I wasn't, this is not right. I'm repeating history again.
Yeah.
Right? So, personally for me, that's where I guess that allowed me to do more reflection. Sorry. And again, looking at myself, 10 years ago, I'm a completely different person. It's almost like two different people. Like, look at, the way that my thinking about relationships, about friendships, everything completely have changed. And, it's really interesting if I was to be able to go back and have a conversation with my former self, that would be a really, really interesting conversation.
Yeah. Well, can I ask how you were different? Like, just give us like some tidbits of how you're different now than who you were 10 years ago.
So I guess like previously it was, it was like my way or the highway, kind of,
Oh,
the way that I was, behaving in my relationships,
yeah. Yeah.
I was really, I'd really kind of allow myself to have, now I'm thinking I have more empathy now than I did before. Again, previously it was just, tunnel vision. This is it, you don't like it, tough. I was a completely different person. And, those are the kind of the ways that I was behaving. Didn't really kind of even, I guess, respect other people's time, less respect for others, which I guess, those are the key things that I'm looking back now, where I guess, having now a family, kids, that gives you, that softens you a lot, that softens me a lot, because I'm looking at the way that they are and learning from them. And, I guess now the teachers, rather than my parents being the teachers, I'm looking at my kids as the teachers,
Yeah.
what I can learn from them. So I guess, things like that.
That's awesome. So what triggered you to become, what was it that made you switch over to being more empathetic? Was there something that happened, or did you, how did you go through that process?
Yeah, I guess it was just, the way that relationships were continually having, relationships were having the same pattern. The same things were being brought up by people that I was in a relationship with. So then I was looking back and saying, hang on a minute, there's the same patterns that were coming up. The things I mentioned about, I'm not really respectful of other people's time, and what they wanted, it was a single my way or the highway thing. So after a while, then I kind of just stepped back and said, look, what am I doing here? These people are completely different people, but they're saying the same thing. So,
Yeah.
they haven't been, I'm sure they're not conspiring with one another. They don't know each other, but they're saying
Yeah.
the same thing. So there must be something that I'm doing, which I guess is, I have to relook at myself, the way that I handle myself and my relationship with other people. So
Yeah.
I guess that's where I kind of took time out and my wife is here. I'm just being honest. She knows my story, so I'm just being open with everyone here.
Good.
And she's just been kind of supportive, and she's been there throughout the journey. So I guess, like you said, having people around you and being there for other people, that's where, if someone is going through change or trauma, but just being there for them, and not being judgmental, just being there for them, that allows them to do the work themselves.
Right.
So yeah.
Were there any aha moments for you when you started becoming more empathetic and not being so my way, my highway, or the highway?
Yeah.
For me still.
I've got some coffee here. Do you know what? I realize it is just coming up to 7 o'clock.
My way or the highway.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. No. Yeah, I guess the aha moments were, I guess the way that my feelings and my emotions in relationships, gratitude, something that I haven't really engaged with, being grateful for the simplest things. Those are the things that I actually appreciate. I catch myself, 5 minutes of just sitting down, just observing things, and just being thankful. Allowing myself to have that opportunity. Previously, this was never on my radar. I didn't even know gratitude, the whole concept of gratitude, being thankful. Of course, I'm thankful for people, but being really thankful, like really thankful of the simplest things, that has not been on my radar. And now that I'm able to kind of, catch myself, being grateful for the simplest things. Again, emotionally, I'm much better at being more, I guess, stronger in my emotions, and dealing with challenging situations. Previously I was more reactive to things. If something didn't go wrong, if something went wrong during the day, like for example in the office, I would be hyped up and angry, and I would kind of, fight fire with fire, right?
Yeah.
I was reactive to situations, but now I'm more chilled out. Because of the empathy, I'm more able to kind of step back and say, why is this person being so angry? Like you have the empathy. You want to understand, why is this person behaving this way?
Yes.
This
Versus
might
like,
be a nasty email. Exactly. So
yeah.
that allows me to step back and not engage, being reactive in a kind of, I guess, angry manner.
Yeah. No, that's such a powerful and beautiful thing to be able to see that. It's amazing. And I'm curious, is Mary, Mary?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Is she with Jay Shetty?
Yeah, Mary's in London. Mary's part of our team.
Oh, excellent.
Mary has a question here.
Yeah.
Stacey, have you found that becoming a coach has affected how you converse with friends? In what way?
Yes. Yes. I mean, because this is my ex would get upset about this. My friends give me a hard time because I am curious. Even when we go out, I'm always asking questions and everything. They're like, you don't have to ask so many questions, but but that's why I love doing this, because I truly am curious. And now it's just gotten worse in a good way, where and now with my friends, I have one who, she's doesn't want to be vulnerable, and she's got it all figured out. So, she thinks she wants to be a coach, and she thinks coaching is giving people advice. And it's so far from it, because she wouldn't be receptive if I were to just tell her what to do. But slowly I'm asking her questions, and that it's amazing to see that transformation, because you're just so on guard. If someone gives you unsolicited advice, no one wants to really hear that, but if you are truly curious in someone, it's amazing. And you feel seen when you do that, with anyone. I mean, that's another thing in dating that I look for. And I even put that on my profile, that, I'm a great listener, but curiosity is such a turn on, because I need for you to be curious of me, like, I had to end a relationship because I was going out with this guy who he would talk about himself the whole time, and I would get in trouble because I could sit and listen to them all day long, until I realized, like, if I did bring it was an experiment to, like, not say anything, see what happens when you don't say anything. And it would either be silent, or he would just keep talking about himself, or I would bring something up and he would turn it around on him. So it was really exhausting. So that it's been helpful in, with friends and in dating too. So hopefully that answers it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stacey. Stacey, I'm just conscious of time now. We're kind of coming up to 7 o'clock here in Dubai, maybe 7 a.m. where you are. I guess just kind of wrap up the session today. Just quickly, in terms of if someone finds themselves in this situation, that situation that you were in previously, what would the kind of the suggestions, or how would you, what are the kind of key things that you think could help someone overcome dealing with sex addiction?
Yeah. First, it's clarity. I mean, I was in a fog for a few years of, like, I'm going to stay. No, I need to get divorced. So that I really want, if I could have gotten clarity earlier, I would. But again, I don't regret any part of the process. But I am so clear now on that. And so that's been really helpful. But it's more, if you are going through a really hard relationship, it's really just about self-love. I know people are so sick of this self-love, hearing about it all the time, but it's so important. I wish I could come up with a different term, but really just connecting back with yourself. Again, I can't stress that enough, because that's, we'd like to think that when you get married, you can stay with someone forever, but the only person you're going to be with forever is yourself. So you got to work on that. You have to. You got to get good at that, because, no one else will. The more you love yourself, the more you put that out, that people want to love you, because they're like, what's that about? They really like themselves. I want some of that, So.
Sorry, I just muted myself.
I know how you do that.
I was just going to say, I guess, people have follow-up questions and, queries. How can they get in touch with you?
Yeah. I mean, my website is Connection to You, CXN. It's abbreviated CXN to YOU. That's my website. And I can have a chat and see what they want to work on. And then I can offer a 90-minute session, and we can dig in deep and have a conversation.
So I guess you are offering a short, free, is it 30-minute session or? 90-minute session. Okay. Yeah. So that's free of charge. So it's just a kind of a chat to.
Yeah. Absolutely. 30 minutes, you can't get it too much, like maybe we're talking about the weather for half an hour, but I think 90 minutes, you can really dive deep with someone. Who knows if we'll work together or not, but if it's a really fun to play and dig deep, and it might be the best conversation. Even sometimes that can be transformative. And you might not work with them ever again, but if it is, then it's totally my pleasure. And it's a lot of fun too.
Awesome. Again, just before we go, any last questions for Stacey before we go? If we don't have any more questions, then I'm just going to bring it to a close, if that's okay. Yeah. So thank you so much, Stacey. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate your time to join us today from across the globe. We've got Stacey, who is like now 7 a.m. We've got people in UK, Mary. We've got people in Dubai here, and we've got people in Southeast Asia, which is coming up to 11 p.m. at night. So we've gone through the whole spectrum at the moment. So awesome.
This really warms my heart. It's so cool to see faces across the globe. It's just a cool. Ray is in Toronto. Just to see, yes. Oh, he put his video on. Yay, good to see you. And it's light outside. But it's such a cool thing to see, you know, all of us in different places connected around the world. It kind of makes my heart sing. Excellent. You too.
Okay. Again, you can unmute yourselves if you want. I'm just going to give, I'm still learning about Zoom here. So
but
you can unmute if you want to have a quick hello and yeah.
Oh, Mary, good to see you.
Hello, thank you guys. It was great.
A really great session. Thanks, Stacey. Really
my pleasure. Where are you in England?
I'm in London at the moment.
Oh, whereabouts?
In Shoreditch, so right in the centre of London.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I lived there for like 3 years in Sloane Square.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm really near Old Street.
That's like a fun area. I heard Shoreditch is like really buzzy and.
It is. I mean, the main attraction isn't really here during lockdown because everything's closed. But yeah, I love it.
Oh, good. I miss it. I mean, actually, not now. The weather, not now, but
it's been grey all day. It's going to be grey all day tomorrow. You're missing nothing.
Oh no! And look, gray. It looks like it's gray too in Toronto as well.
Yeah, but no reason to go outside. We're in lockdown over here, so it's all good.
No, everyone is like, it's coming. We have curfews now in LA where we have to be home by 10 tonight. So.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my God.
Or you're in Orange County, so maybe it's different for you. No.
I'm in Orange County, yeah.
No, Gavin Newsom.
Oh, don't get me started.
Yep. So
I'm going on a hike outside, and it's beautiful.
I mean, you guys enjoy this connection because, you know, this is as much as we're going to get. You know, real people in person is like very, very far
away.
Yeah. So let's celebrate it, whether it's 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. Cheers.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
I love the congratulations.
With that, I'm going to bring it to a close, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Just before we leave, I'm going to end with something that I always share with something from Les Brown. Wherever you are, you've made an appointment to be there. And you have made an appointment to be here today for the past hour to learn with Stacey Parker. And I really applaud you for doing that. So big clap for you guys, for everyone. Okay, so thank you so much.
Thank you, Camille.
Thank you, Stacey. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Camille.
Thanks, Camille.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Good night from Dubai.